At Gabon's presidential inauguration, one name sparked chose Ibrahim Traoré. He wasn't there. He wasn't invited. But when his name was spoken, the crowd exploded. Not for the president, but for him. Why would a foreign leader's name hijack another country's most sacred political event? Let's find out. On the surface, the May 3rd presidential inauguration in Gabon was supposed to be a formality. A neatly packaged ceremony designed for cameras, not citizens. The kind of carefully choreographed performance where the real decisions had already been made in back rooms, and the public was just there to clap for the man taking the oath. General Brice Oligui Nguema stood calm and confident. Soldiers stood at attention. Delegates wore silk. International observers nodded in approval. To the casual observer, everything seemed in order. But then came the moment that exposed what the polished stage couldn't hide. This wasn't just an inauguration. It was a battlefield in a tuxedo. You see, Gabon was trying to sell a narrative that its military transition is over, and now it's time to return to normal. With France on one side, the IMF on the other, and elections sanitized for foreign consumption. The goal was to show that Gabon is not like Burkina Faso, Mali, or Niger, that it's stable, cooperative, and predictable. But that illusion shattered the moment Captain Ibrahim Traoré's name was spoken. It didn't come from an opposition leader or a planned protest. It came quietly, almost innocently, from a youth speaker making remarks on African solidarity. A mention of our brothers in Burkina Faso and their fight for self-determination. And then, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. That was all it took. The reaction was immediate. The youth section stirred, then erupted. Shouts echoed. Some began chanting his name. Others clapped. A wave moved through the stands like a pulse. For a brief moment, the cameras hesitated, unsure where to focus. Ministers in the front row turned nervously. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Traoré wasn't the main character that day, but the crowd decided otherwise. And what does that tell us? It tells us the real story wasn't on stage. It was in the crowd. Gabon's elites tried to present a clean break from chaos, a shift back to polite politics. But what echoed from the mouths of the youth wasn't politeness. It was resistance. Traoré's name didn't create that energy. It revealed it, like a match dropped into a gas-filled room. The symbolic weight of that moment cannot be overstated. Traoré isn't Gabonese. He has no military ties there. But his name rang louder than the man being sworn in. That's not politics. That's power without permission. Influence without borders. A symbol bigger than any single leader. Because this crowd wasn't just cheering for a man. They were rejecting a performance. Rejecting the idea that Gabon must always return to France's orbit. That after every shake-up, the final handshake must still involve foreign powers. That liberation must always come with approval. They were rejecting the blueprint. And what happens when a nation achieves stability, but its people chant for revolution? You panic quietly, diplomatically, behind curtains. Because the moment a name like Traoré receives that kind of applause in a country like Gabon, it signals something far more dangerous than instability. It signals a split in reality, between the official version printed in press releases and the truth echoing in the streets. And then there's the real version, the one shouted by young men in the streets, whispered through marketplaces, and impossible to translate into diplomatic language. That crowd told us something that day. What they told us was clear. Gabon's inauguration wasn't a return to normal. It was a front line in a much larger war for Africa's soul. One side wears medals and carries French handshakes in their briefcases. The other side wears dust and carries dreams and chants names like Traoré, even when no one tells them to. And that brings us to a deeper question. One the cameras will never ask. Why is a man like Traoré more electrifying in Gabon than Gabon's own president? Reminder, if you're feeling this message, like and share the video. Subscribe to Black Rebellion for more stories on Black Rebellion, Black existence, and black untold history. Now, there's a reason why Ibrahim Traoré's name doesn't land softly. It doesn't echo politely like some diplomatic slogan. It hits like thunder. Sharp, rebellious roar. When the crowd in Libreville erupted at his name, it wasn't just about Burkina Faso. It wasn't even just about Gabon. It was about what Africa has been craving and denied for generations. A leader who doesn't flinch. In a continent suffocated by polite puppets, Traoré walked onto the stage of history and refused the script. No teleprompters, no Western handlers, no empty gestures coated in globalist smiles. And that refusal alone, that refusal to bow, makes him dangerous. Because in Africa, politics has always been a game of permission. Who allowed you to speak? Who endorsed your win? Who backed your reforms? You can run a country, but unless Paris signs off, you don't govern. That's the quiet truth. Traoré bulldozed it. So when his name was spoken in Gabon, the people didn't hear just a man. They heard a verdict, a guilty verdict against every leader still acting like independence must be negotiated in French. They said Traoré was too young, too inexperienced, too military. But that's exactly what made him unavoidable. Because he didn't climb their ladder. He kicked it down and built his own. The youth in Africa, in Gabon, Congo, in Togo, they see themselves in him. Not in his medals, not in his uniform, but in his defiance. He sounds like them, walks like them. No filters. No diplomatic training wheels. He speaks to the pain they live with every day: jobless growth, foreign-controlled mining towns, security outsourced to drones, policies written in Europe and dumped like garbage onto African parliaments. And unlike the usual suspects, the tired old generals turned presidents, the exiled billionaires returning just for elections, Traoré didn't ask for anyone's blessing. He took power like it was owed to him, not gifted. That terrifies the African elite, because their survival depends on pretending the people love them. But how can they pretend when a foreign leader's name gets more applause than their entire national anthem? This is no longer about Burkina Faso. This is a test of relevance. And many African presidents are failing it. There's a reason we call them puppet leaders. Because their loyalty isn't to their soil. It's to the wire holding them up. Whether it's the French embassy, EU development programs, or USAID-funded youth initiatives that promise nothing but recycled poverty dressed up with a digital logo. They've built careers by being compliant, silent, and predictable. Traoré is none of that. He walks into summits late, uninvited. He rejects aid. He calls out the West publicly, not in private briefings or confidential memos, but in front of cameras. His enemies call him reckless. But to millions of Africans, he finally looks like someone not afraid to lose his job. And that matters. Because in African politics, courage is rare. Survival is the name of the game. Ministers don't speak unless they're sure no one will be offended. Presidents apologize before they govern. But Traoré, he governs like he owes nothing to anyone but his people. That energy travels. It explains why someone in Gabon would shout his name louder than their own president. Because they're not cheering for a flag. They're cheering for a feeling. One they've been starved of for decades: ownership. Ownership of land, of decisions, of the future. And here's the quiet part no one says out loud. Our Ibrahim Traoré doesn't have to lead your country to make you feel like you've taken it back. His very existence makes weak leaders look like shadows, and shadows hate the light. That's why they fear him. That's why the West tries to ignore him or reduce him to headlines about military rule or populism. Because they know his kind of popularity can't be bought, can't be contained, can't be copied. It must be earned in fire. And every time his name is chanted in a country he doesn't govern, another puppet president feels his chair wobble. Now the question becomes, what happens when a continent doesn't just erupt at the sound of one man's name, but starts acting on what he stands for? Because Gabon's crowd didn't just celebrate Traoré. They exposed something. They exposed hunger. And hunger always spreads. Traoré didn't need to cross a border to cause trouble. The virus he carries, the one elites fear most, isn't biological. It's ideological. And like all powerful ideas, it spreads without permission. It used to be easy. Countries were boxed in ECOWAS over here, Central African states over there, each with their presidents, uniforms, and pretend sovereignty. But Traoré and the alliance of Sahel states, AES he helped shape, smashed those borders wide open. Not with armies, but with clarity, with language, with intent. And that's exactly what Gabon is beginning to feel. Because whether its leaders admit it or not, Gabon is already infected. Not by a coup, not by sanctions, but by doubt. The kind that grows slowly, then detonates overnight. You could hear it in the chants at the inauguration. You could feel it in the uneasy glances exchanged by politicians when the name Traoré turned the crowd. And you can trace it in the shifting conversations happening across Libreville's markets, university dorms, and even military barracks. People are starting to ask questions they never dared ask before. Why are we still exporting oil and importing poverty? Why do we have peace treaties, but no peace? Why does France always show up during our elections, but disappear when our youth are unemployed, our streets flood, or our forests burn? These aren't AES questions. These are African questions. But it's the AES spirit, Thast raw refusal to keep playing the colonizer's game, that has given those questions teeth. And the elite in Gabon? They know it. Gabon may not be part of the AES alliance, not on paper. But politics doesn't happen on paper anymore. It happens in the friction between people and power. And every chant for Traoré at that inauguration was a spark in dry grass. Let's be honest, Gabon is ripe. The country just went through a military transition. General Brice Oligui Nguema came to power after ousting President Ali Bongo, ending a 56-year political dynasty backed to the bone by France. That transition shocked the world, not because of the coup, but because of how easily it happened. That's what scares the Sisting-the-Ease. No violent uprising, no protracted resistance. Just a smooth transfer of power. As if the country had long since stopped pretending that democracy meant anything more than staged elections and offshore bank accounts. But that's exactly the danger. When people get a taste of power shifting hands without blood, they begin to imagine it happening again and again, until real change finally takes root. Now imagine that same population watching Traoré reject foreign aid, build a national bank, refuse French protection, and expose coup plots, all while looking like a brother, not a boss. Imagine how that feels to a Gabonese citizen, still waiting for power to be more than a ceremony. The idea that Gabon could follow Burkina Faso's path isn't a fantasy. It's math. One spark, one chant, one unpopular IMF deal away. Already, the blueprint has changed. It used to be that military takeovers had to apologize. Now, they get clapped for. If they serve the people, not their foreign handlers. That's the AES effect. Not just an alliance by treaty, an alliance by imagination. And imagination is dangerous. It redefines what's possible. Once you see someone break the chains, you stop believing yours are unbreakable. So what does that mean for Gabon? It means the elites are sitting on a time bomb, a silent one, made not of C4, but of consciousness. They've delayed reforms. They've reshuffled faces, but the system remains the same. And every time someone like Traoré speaks, that system looks older, rustier, weaker. And the soldiers, they don't forget. Africa's modern political shifts aren't being dictated by diplomats anymore. They're being shaped by captains, colonels, and commanders. Tired of escorting presidents who sign contracts they don't understand in languages they don't speak. AES didn't happen in a boardroom. It happened in barracks. If Gabon soldiers start feeling like Burkina Faso's did, it won't be a question of if. It'll be a question of who's next. So no, Gabon isn't AES, but it doesn't need to be, because the spirit is already inside. Now let's talk about the international impact Traoré is making. They won't say it on camera. But behind closed doors, in NACL briefing rooms and EU security meetings, One African name keeps showing up on classified reports. Ibrahim Traoré. Not because he launched missiles. Not because he cut off oil. Not because he hacked into anyone's servers. No, it's much simpler than that. He's feared because he's real. In a world addicted to puppets and proxies, Traoré doesn't answer the phone when Washington calls. He doesn't flatter the French. He doesn't negotiate his sovereignty with a bounty and a checklist. And worst of all, he's popular for it. The crowd that erupted in Gabon didn't just send a message to African elites. They sent one straight into the heart of Europe's intelligence community. Your firewall is failing. Because let's not pretend, France, the US, the EU, they don't see Africa as a continent of equals. They see it as a chessboard dog, natural resources, strategic positioning, political assets to manage. Traoré flipped the board. What's terrifying about him isn't that he leads Burkina Faso. It's that he's leading a narrative. And narratives can't be sanctioned. You can cut off aid. You can smear a man's name on routers. You can cancel military deals. But you can't cancel a contagious idea. And that's what the Western military, industrial complex is quietly confronting. Traoré isn't a threat because of what he controls. He's a threat because of what he inspires. When youth in Gabon shout Traoré's name, it creates a problem no drone strike can fix. It means they're thinking for themselves. It means they're comparing, and worse, they're choosing. Choosing authenticity over protocol. Sovereignty over speeches, action over apologies to NATO. That's destabilizing. To the IMF, it's dangerous. To the African Union, it's embarrassing. So now Traoré's name lives in two places, on the lips of the hopeful and in the files of the frightened. Inside Brussels, policy analysts are scrambling, trying to figure out how to contain the AES movement, not militarily, at least not yet, psychologically. Because the goal isn't to kill Traoré. The goal is to kill what he represents. Discredit him. Call him a dictator. Say his junta threatens democracy. Spread rumors. Push narratives that associate him with instability. Highlight every economic struggle in Burkina Faso, while ignoring the decades of Western economic strangulation that caused it. And yet, it's not working. Because people aren't just listening to Traoré. They're watching who hates him. Let's talk tactics. There are already whispers of containment strategies. Pressure on neighboring governments to distance themselves from AES, threats of trade blocs, secret promises of military gear in exchange for stability. A quiet funding of opposition groups, it's textbook. The kind of foreign interference the West never admits, but always deploys when a black man stands up without strings. Because here's the thing, it was never about coups. It was always about control. The West never cared how power was taken, only who is served after the dust settled. If a military leader pledged loyalty to Paris or hosted AFRICOM bases, suddenly, he was a transitional figure. But when one like Traoré kicks them out and refuses to kneel, now he's a problem, a threat. But the truth is simpler. He's unmanageable. And the Western world doesn't know how to manage a continent that stopped asking for permission. The eruption in Gabon wasn't just noise. It was data. A spike on the intelligence radar. Proof that the Traoré effect is working. That it's outgrowing borders, mutating, gaining speed. And the louder his name gets in foreign countries, the harder it becomes to erase. And they've tried shadow bans, dismissive headlines, strategic silence. But none of it works when his absence is louder than their presence. When a man doesn't even attend an event, yet his name hijacks it. That's not politics anymore. That's mythology in real time. And mythology is dangerous. Because it gives people something they haven't in decades: hope. With teeth. So what's next? They'll try to box him in. Trap him with diplomacy. Isolate him with narratives. But unless they cut the internet and gag every young African on the continent, they've already lost control. Because this was never about stopping Traoré. It was about stopping the feeling of Traoré. And now it's everywhere. So what do you think? Is this a sign that Africans everywhere are ready for leaders who serve, not sell out? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Will the current leaders adapt, or be swept away by the rising wave? Want more videos like this? Then subscribe to Black Rebellion and hit that bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. We bring you what no one else will. Black Rebellion, Black Existence, and Black Untold History. Thanks for watching, and until the next uprising, stay sharp, stay free, stay tuned.